Hey everyone, this is your next video on AI use for Project 2. So in this project we are going to be finding a scholarly article, breaking it down, practicing doing research through a database, and illustrating the scholarly article as a method for making sense of complicated research like scholarly articles. So I want to talk about in what ways using AI can assist your learning and in what ways it's perfectly fine to use AI, and then in what ways using AI would actually end up bypassing your learning for this unit, and places where I would say you want to avoid it, you want to be wary of it, or this would violate an academic honesty policy. So as I've mentioned in the past, all of this matters because of how much AI can be used for an assistive tool and how much AI can be overused in an educational space to kind of do the learning for us, to where we're not actually getting anything out of doing the assignment because we just had an AI do it for us. So here is just another, I've repeated this slide in the first video, so I'll kind of skim over it a little bit, but there is AI language in the syllabus that mentions how important it is to just be mindful of the learning goals of the project, the learning goals of each assignment, and avoid using AI in ways that would bypass your learning, to use it as a tool. Hopefully after you guys have kind of gotten through Unit 1 with me, you will see now that whenever I have any concerns or whenever I am noticing anything that seems like it might be AI generated, I like to point it out, I like to make you aware of it, I like to talk with you about it, but otherwise I generally won't spend too much time harping on how I feel about your AI use unless I feel concerned about it. So I will always communicate with you first if I have any concerns, but otherwise keep watching this video to see where my feelings lie on AI use in our second project. Okay, so one of the things that we are going to be doing with this project is searching for sources similar to what we did in Project 1, but this time we're just going to find one scholarly article by the end of our project. Now we'll do a couple of things as activities in the beginning to sort of think about different scholarly articles that we might want to use, but we'll end up just picking one for the final for this. So it's okay again to use a platform like ChatGPT or even other more research heavy types of AI platforms to find a scholarly article, but there is absolutely a learning goal it worked into this project that helps you learn how to use a scholarly database. So using an AI to bypass that process is just going to kind of take a little bit of that away from you. I want you to be able to at least identify a database, know how it works, know some of the really nice tools that a database is already giving you, and in some ways databases are already integrated with AI, so there's a lot of really good stuff that comes from working with the database. So yep, you can use things like ChatGPT or whatever, any AI, to find a scholarly article, but I will say that if you bypass even accessing the database, you're going to miss part of the learning in this unit. Any AI suggested source that you might find, just check and make sure that it's real and that you can access it. Now for our project in Unit 2, you will have to have full text access to the scholarly article you choose, not only so that you can really effectively read and review the article, but also because I will ask you to provide me with a copy of that article so that I don't have to go searching for it, so I can validate all of your paraphrases and all of your quotes and make sure that I can also actually find them inside your sources. I would say for all of this unit, the most unethical thing that you could do, the thing that would definitely violate the academic honesty policy, as well as bypass all of the learning for this unit, would be to ask AI to provide the scholarly article, summaries, and quotes without ever laying your eyes on the article or engaging with the article yourself. So I want you to be, working in ways with the source. All right, so one of the things you'll do once you find your articles, you'll break it down into smaller chunks to make it make sense. These articles are very difficult to read, especially as readers at our entry level. This is an entry level course. This is only like the second tier course in a writing class. So it does make sense that reading a scholarly article would be difficult. That is one of the things that there is a hurdle there, and it's a very intentional hurdle. When you look at a scholarly article and you immediately think, this is confusing to me. Yes, that is part of the goal. It's actually intended to be confusing because the learning is how do you make sense of things that are confusing, that are over your head, that are written for a much more elevated or academic audience than perhaps you have the language for. What do you do to break down a lengthy text to make it make sense? So when you're breaking down the scholarly article, if you use AI as an assistant, as a tool, then you'll be able, there's a way to collaborate with AI in that sense. But if you use it to bypass even putting your eyes on the article, even reading it at all, then you're completely bypassing the learning of how to make sense of something that is complicated. That's also part of the goal. Some of the things that help you make sense of a difficult scholarly article are things like outlining the article, summarizing the key points, paraphrasing major ideas, and quoting from the article to kind of validate that you understand. If you write a particular summary or a particular paraphrase, where can you point to that article and say, right here is where I know that they had this intended meaning, or this is what they said, because you can point to their language, you can quote from their language. So using AI for some of this to help you, especially if you kind of get stuck, is perfectly fine and acceptable and encouraged. Maybe you start reading and the introduction makes sense, but then you get to some heavy data and you're like, I don't really understand how to interpret this data. You can put it through a summarizer and say, help me summarize this content. And it can make smaller chunks that are well over your head make more sense to you. But I want you to, always make the attempt first to make it make sense. And then when you get stuck, go to your assistant tools, help summarize this chunk of text that's a little more complicated within the whole piece, and then take over again, say, okay, got it. All right, that makes sense now. I will continue to read. Keep reading until you get confused. So pick and choose in what ways you will allow AI to assist you, but don't let it do all the work for you. And a really good checkpoint that you can have for yourself is to answer this question. Could you discuss this article with a group? So if after you've engaged with it, if after you've read through it, you are not able to discuss the article, then you don't understand it enough, and the AI technology has taken over your learning. If you can feel comfortable talking about the scholarly article with other people who have read it as well, then you have probably not bypassed your learning and found a way to use AI to help you make it make sense while still retaining the majority of the content on your own. Another thing that you're going to do while you're working through this project is paraphrase your source. So there's going to be content that you're reading about in your scholarly article, and you will put that into your own words. So here's a gray area, really similar to summarizing sources from our previous unit. AI can help you understand if you work with it, but again, you don't want to completely bypass it. You don't want to say, just give me 6 paraphrases from somewhere in this article where you, again, aren't understanding the context of them, aren't really understanding what the whole article is about. Paraphrasing, using AI to paraphrase can help you know if, the draft of your paraphrase makes sense. You can write up what you think the quote or the content is saying, and then use an AI to check in. Here's a paragraph from the text. Here's my paraphrase. Am I understanding this content correctly? And then the AI could help you maybe with any kind of nuances that you're misunderstanding or missing completely. So you really want to make sure again that you're working with it and it's not working for you. And when you work with it, it will work for you, but that it's not doing the work for you. So just be mindful that you are engaging with any AI generated paraphrase or summary that, paraphrases could be wrong. It can just make stuff up. Paraphrases can be out of context. We can think that it sounds great, but actually maybe that's not what the author is saying. And again, the only way that you would know this is if you engage with the article yourself. And then in these ways, if you aren't engaging with the article, then paraphrasing can definitely bypass your own understanding. So again, just go back to that check. Could I talk about this with someone who understands the information? If the answer is yes, then you're good to go. If the answer is no, then you want to keep working with that article yourself. Okay, another thing that comes up, I've had students try this out in the past specifically for this assignment. They'll ask AI to pull some quotes from the article that relate to maybe paraphrases that they've written themselves. And I've seen a couple of things happen. I've seen places where the AI is working great. I've had students feed the AI the text, which is always going to give you a better quote pull than just asking the AI to hope that it knows the text. And this is always, again, going to be dependent on probably what version of AI you are using and actually what AI you're using. There's going to be some AI platforms that do this better than others. But anytime you are pulling quotes, you must verify that the quotes are actually quotes from the article. So they need to be completely 100% word for word, the exact same words in the quote that any AI has pulled. You've got to make sure that that's exactly the same language, in the same structure, word for word from the source. I've seen AI just make up quotes, like that quote can't be found anywhere in any kind of context in the source. What it does is it'll usually just pop a little summary in there and put it in quotation marks, but it's not actually found directly word for word from the source. And I've also seen it misquote, where it'll get the quote mostly similar to the original content, but it's maybe added in a word or two, or replaced one word with a different word, so it's not really just copy pasting. And that's what we need to see when we have a quote. We need to see an identical match for what's in the content of the source. So just keep in mind, if you're asking AI to pull quotes for you, you must verify that they actually exist from within the article itself. Citing, this is the same page as I shared with you guys last unit. I've added 2 things, and that's what I'm going to focus on. So we learned a couple things from unit 1 when I noticed, or when y'all told me that you were using AI to cite your sources, which I have no problem with. A couple things I'm noticing, AI is using asterisks to indicate italics. I see this in, I think, Discord, where we can surround some text with asterisks, and it will then, when we send the text, italicize it. So this must be some sort of more universal back-end formatting thing that happens, but be on the lookout for that. If you see asterisks in a generated citation, it's probably telling you, hey, this content needs to be in italics. So you'll need to go in and format it that way. The other thing that I noticed is if you've got a citation in APA format that's been AI generated, whether that's with like an AI like ChatGPT or whether that's just with a generating service like EasyBib. I don't know which one is doing it, or maybe it's a completely different one than one I've said, but I will notice this is with APA format that a small little letter A is being placed after some of the years in the citation. So it'll be something like author, and then it will say year, like 2025, and then there'll be a little letter A next to it. Check for that, because the only reason we would ever use a little letter after the date in APA format is if we are citing multiple sources by the same author written in the same year. So like if Max Smith published 4 books in 2018, that's the situation, and we cited all of them or more than one, that's the situation where we would have that little letter A. So really no one is ever going to be experiencing this situation generally, so I shouldn't see that A. So just check in with that, not only as a way to learn, hey, you learned a little bit of knowledge by watching this video and me telling you that, but also to prove, hey, this isn't supposed to be here, right? Okay, so just always, again, just trust but verify. Hopefully your citations look great, but check in on them and make sure you understand how to update them if they don't. Another thing that's going to come up is illustrating. So part of this project is that it's multimodal. There will be pictures. I have no problem with AI use for generating images. I know that there's a full and robust discussion of image generation and AI use, pros and cons, how it affects how it affects illustrators and artists, how it uses more energy than other forms of AI generation. And I think that all of that is valid and worth discussing. In terms of academic honesty, I don't have an issue with you using AI to generate any kind of illustrations. But what I notice when my students use AI to generate their comic strips is that it really isn't good at it. And the reason for that, I believe, is because it's twofold. One, the number of little images that you need within the comic strip in order to articulate what's going on in your scholarly article there's so much image that's required. It's not holistic and it's not uniform. It's breaking down the pieces of your scholarly article into little images to make associations in your mind as you're reading. And AI it's not good with this. It would be probably better if you like AI generated images. It would probably be better for you to take each segment of where you need an image and ask AI for that image, and then go and plug it into your scholarly article breakdown, your comic strip, as opposed to asking it to just generate all of the images or like the whole thing, because I think because of that scale, and also because it sees the phrase comic strip and it thinks, okay, we have characters and we're telling a story, and that's not really what we're doing with this. We're just visually breaking down the scholarly article into visual segments with text. And comic strip was the best phrase that I could think of in order to define this. But per the definition of comic strip, it's not actually what we're doing. So AI is going to misunderstand our assignment. And I've seen it do that probably every time when a student has first drafted with AI the entirety of the images all at once. So just be careful if you're going to use it. It's fine to use, but you want to make sure, I don't think it's going to bypass your learning, but it might actually just not do a good job. It might not meet the requirements of the images needed for this. So make sure you do understand the assignment, what I'm asking for, before you just submit any AI image-based generation. The final thing, this slide looks almost identical to last unit, is just we will have a reflection at the end of every unit where I'm asking you to think about, how did this project go for you? What are your thoughts on it? And I'll give you specific questions. Don't use any AI to write your reflection. I just want pure, raw thinking thoughts. I'll probably check in. I'm recording this a little preemptively. I will probably check in with the reflections that I see in Unit 1. And if it's looking like I'm still getting a lot of AI assistance, I may just divert and say, don't write anything. You just record your thoughts, like, as they flow. Give me a voice recording or a video recording, which you are always welcome to do for reflections. But if writing is still an option by the end of Unit 2, then just write. Don't use Grammarly. Don't use any editing software. Microsoft Word to make spell check corrections, put commas where they need to be. That's fine. But in terms of accepting any major phrasing changes, just don't even worry about that, because it's not about polished writing. It's just about authentic thinking. And however I can get that authentic thinking is what I want. Okay? So this covers everything that I want you to know about using and not using AI in Unit 2. And if you have any questions, just email me.